Good morning. This is Father Stephen Kelly from St. John's Church in Detroit. And we're continuing our series of daily morning meditations, where we generally look at one or another lessons that are assigned for morning or evening prayer, what is known as the daily office lectionary. And today is Wednesday, the feast of St. Thomas of Villanova, and we are going to take a look at the first lesson that's assigned for evening prayer tonight, and that is from the book Ecclesiasticus. Now, we've been working our way through this book from the Apocrypha, remember the Deuterocanonicals, in other words, the second canon. These are the books that are written between the Old and New Testament, which are accepted with authority by the Roman Catholic, the Orthodox, and the Anglican churches, of which we are a member of the Worldwide Anglican Communion. And therefore, the overwhelming majority of Christians do accept books like this as a part of the canon of Scripture. And so we're already up to chapter 44, and this is probably one of the best known of the readings from the book of Ecclesiasticus. That's why I wanted to say it. Let us now praise famous men and our fathers that begat us. The Lord hath wrought great glory by them through his great power from the beginning. Such as did bear rule in their kingdoms, men renowned for their power, giving counsel by their understanding and declaring prophecies. Leaders of the people by their counsels, and by their knowledge of learning meet for the people, wise and eloquent in their instructions. Such as found out musical tunes and recited verses in writing. Rich men furnished with ability, living peaceably in their habitations. All these were honored in their generations, and were the glory of their times. There be of them that have left a name behind them, that their praises might be reported. And some there be which have no memorial, who are perished as though they had never been, and are become as though they had never been born, and their children after them. But these were merciful men, whose righteousness hath not been forgotten. With their seed shall continually remain a good inheritance, and their children are within the covenant. Their seed standeth fast, and their children for their sakes. Their seed shall remain forever, and their glory shall not be blotted out. Their bodies are buried in peace, but their name liveth forevermore. The people will tell of their wisdom, and the congregation will show forth their praise. So I think of this reading often when I am at Elmwood Cemetery in Detroit, and actually today I have a meeting of the foundation board of the Elmwood Cemetery, of which I've been a part of since the foundation of the foundation there. This is one of those very old cemeteries here in Detroit, and from the earliest time in our parish, that cemetery has been the burial place of many of our parishioners. Our founder, Henry Porter Baldwin, is buried there, as well as our first priest, who went on to be the Bishop of Wisconsin, Father Armitage. And many important people are buried in that cemetery. When I was a new priest, new priest of this parish, I should say, we got a bill for upkeep for a cemetery plot, and I found out later that, in fact, that cemetery plot was Father Armitage, our first priest, and so we have been caring for that plot since then. But interestingly enough, I mentioned to the then director of the cemetery that I was very interested to find out that in the earliest years, maybe the first 40, 50 years of this parish, if people weren't buried at Elmwood Cemetery, they were buried at another cemetery called the City Cemetery, and I couldn't find where that was. Well, Elmwood was the cemetery where, if you had enough financial means, you could afford a beautiful, beautiful burial space. The City Cemetery was the Paupers Cemetery. And I'm actually kind of glad to know that this parish had people of both means. But, interestingly, the director of the cemetery said, well, that's very interesting. No wonder you cannot find that cemetery anywhere on a map, because it doesn't exist anymore. And in fact, it is where Eastern Market's now located. The bodies, the Pauper Cemetery, they were all disinterred, and their bodies reverently reburied at Elmwood Cemetery. So how do you love that? At the end of time, those whose name have a memorial and they're remembered from generation to generation with large monuments and great hurrah at Elmwood, at the general resurrection of the dead, at the end of time, when Jesus returns and the earth and the sea shall give up their dead, all the members of St. John shall rise in the same place, rich or poor. I love that. Today is Wednesday, and we do have our 12:15 Holy Communion service, and then at 5 o'clock evening prayer. And I do hope you can join us in person or online at stjohnsdetroit.org. And may you have a Wednesday that is full of blessings.